In the quiet town of Bellwood, nestled between the hills and the forgotten highways of Indiana, a young woman vanished without a trace in 2007. Her case turned cold until one person stepped forward, someone the police had overlooked for years. The forgotten witness. Bellwood, Indiana, population 384. It might look like your typical sleepy Midwestern town, but every place has its secrets, some buried deeper than others. It is 2007 and a young woman named Rachel Moore is about to move to this town with her fiancé and start a new life. But she never gets there, not alive anyway. In this town where everyone knows everyone, it seems like Rachel's disappearance would have shaken things up. But after a few months of searching, the leads went nowhere, the theories fell apart, and Rachel's case went cold. That is until recently when one person came forward with new information, but their story only raises more questions. What could they possibly have to say? Did they see something that day, or someone who knows what happened? Or are they just another crackpot theory in a long line of them? Let's revisit the night Rachel disappeared and find out what secrets Bellwood has been hiding all these years. I'm your host, and you're watching this channel. Join me as we look back at cases the public and the police got wrong and separated. Sometimes the smallest piece of evidence can change everything. On October 12, 2007, Rachel Moore, a 25-year-old aspiring writer, was on her way from Ohio to Bellwood, Indiana, to start her new life with her fiancé Justin. She was moving in with his parents while they saved money for a house. Justin worked at a concrete factory, and his mother managed the local Piggly Wiggly supermarket. Bellwood was a close-knit community. When Rachel arrived, she was warmly welcomed by her future in-laws and quickly found a job as a clerk at the Piggly Wiggly. Life was good, but then a week later, Rachel was gone. One minute she was stocking shelves and chatting with co-workers, and the next she vanished without a trace. Nobody knew where she went or why she left. Her cell phone was left on the kitchen counter, and her purse, keys, and wallet were in the apartment. All signs pointed to the fact that she just wanted to run away from her problems, except no one could understand why. The people who knew Rachel best described her as someone who was very close to her family and friends. They said she had no reason to leave without telling anyone. Her sister told the police that Rachel had called her the night before she disappeared. The two had talked for hours about how excited Rachel was about her new home and how much she loved Justin. There was no hint that she was planning to end things with him. She also wasn't suicidal. Friends and family were shocked by her disappearance and scared because she'd never acted out of character like this before. Her fiancé, Justin, was devastated. He told police he had not fought with Rachel and he didn't know why she would just leave him. With no solid lead, the search continued for a week. Flyers were put up around town and on telephone poles. Local churches held prayer vigils and hundreds of volunteers combed through the area for any sign of Rachel. But there was nothing. Days turned into weeks, then months, then years, and the case went cold. This wasn't unusual for rural towns. Resources were scarce, and many departments couldn't afford dedicated investigators for cold cases. Rachel's family kept hoping for a breakthrough, but it never came. The years passed and they watched as memories faded and leads went nowhere. Then in 2021, when the case was 13 years old, a man contacted the police. His name was Kevin Warner, and he had news. He claimed that he knew what happened to Rachel. He'd seen her the night she disappeared. According to Kevin, he'd been driving home from work at the local factory when he saw Rachel walking down the highway. He pulled over to offer her a ride. She accepted and asked to be dropped off at the intersection of county roads 600 North and 700 East. This was about 3 miles north of Bellwood and not far from where Rachel's body was later found. But at the time, the police had no idea that she'd even been in this part of town. According to Kevin, after dropping Rachel off, he drove home and went to bed. In the morning, he heard on the radio that a girl had disappeared from Bellwood. He immediately called the police, but they never seemed interested in what he had to say. So he waited another year and then another, but still no one came to ask him again. Why did Rachel hitchhike that night? Why did she get out so far from town? And most importantly, was she in danger? But this time, when he called, the police took him seriously. An investigator flew out to California to question him. But despite Kevin's insistence, they wouldn't tell him what information they already had or what they thought happened to Rachel. All he knew was that she had been missing for 13 years. If the police really wanted to know what he remembered, they'd need to hurry. His memory of the event was becoming hazy, and he was worried he might forget details that could help them find out what happened. He tried to describe what he remembered about Rachel that night. She'd been wearing a white t-shirt and jeans and carrying a duffel bag. She didn't seem to be in a hurry. As they drove, they chatted casually, and he got the impression she was trying to start a new life for herself. He said she was friendly, polite, and seemed confident. At no point did he think she was in danger. She seemed like a normal girl who needed a ride home. Kevin insisted that he dropped her off at the corner of County Road 600 North and 700 East, which was close to where her body would eventually be discovered. After dropping her off, he drove home and went to bed. In the morning, he heard about Rachel's disappearance on the radio and called the police, but they didn't come to interview him right away. In fact, he never heard from them again for almost 13 years. Now, finally, they were paying attention. Was Kevin being taken seriously this time around? Investigators wanted to recreate the journey he'd described, so they asked Kevin to drive them to the spot where he claimed to have picked up Rachel. The first leg of the trip was uneventful. They drove past cornfields and overpasses, but didn't see anything relevant. Then they reached Kevin's drop-off point, the corner of County Road 600 North and 700 East. Here, the terrain changed. They were no longer on a wide, well-paved road. Now they were on narrow country lanes that cut through the tall grasses and trees. As they drove deeper into the countryside, the investigator asked Kevin if he was sure this was the right place. Kevin said yes, but admitted his memory was failing him. As the sun began to set, they reached a dead end. There was a dilapidated farm. The police searched the area, but it was too late in the day to continue. They decided to return the next morning. When they came back, they brought in cadaver dogs. They searched the area where Kevin claimed to have dropped Rachel off, but they didn't pick up her scent. They searched the farmhouse, but it was abandoned and filled with junk. Frustrated, the investigator returned to Kevin's drop-off point. They used a drone to search the area, but it was no use. Kevin insisted he had seen Rachel here, but as the sun went down again, they packed up and went home. As they drove away, Kevin looked out the window. The police had missed something. He wasn't sure what, but he knew there was a connection between this place and Rachel's disappearance. Where did Rachel go that night? What happened here? And how was this old farmhouse connected to her disappearance? We may never know for sure, but one thing is clear. Kevin was telling the truth. After the search, the police thanked Kevin for his help and sent him on his way. However, they still haven't released any information about the case, leaving everyone to wonder if they uncovered anything during that search. It was another dead end. The police were no closer to solving the mystery of Rachel Moore's disappearance, and Kevin felt like he let everyone down. He thought he'd finally done something to bring Rachel's case out of the shadows, but maybe it was better that he'd stayed silent all those years. It's been 13 years since Rachel disappeared, and we still don't know what happened to her. We can only hope that the truth will eventually come to light, no matter how hidden it may be. The case of Rachel Moore reminds us that sometimes the truth hides not in the shadows, but in the voice we ignore. No witness is too small, no memory too fragile, and no voice should ever be forgotten. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.